My kids now know that I'm going to exercise, something they know that I do now. They're sort of aware that it's something that I place importance on. And I think that's all that matters. Look at how much you've done for our family by doing this. Like, we're all better off for it. And I think just showing people by example that it's not a sacrifice, it's just different.
All right, welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime Sigouin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, we are joined by a Fit Vegan superstar, Dr. Jennifer Yager. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about yourself?
Amazing. Very excited that we get to chat about your story. I know you led a group call as an alumni member for our members last week, and they absolutely loved having you there. Had a lot of great questions for you, had a lot of great insights. And then I remembered that we were recording a podcast today, and I was like, great, she'll get to bring some of those insights to the people that, are potentially just on their own journey or they're wanting to start their journey. So do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about yourself and kind of where you were at before you started this whole process so people can understand that you do have a busy life and you still chose to improve yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. Where I was before I joined, I was, as I always am, trying as best as I can to live the healthiest life possible. So I am a physician. I work for an academic medical center Monday through Friday. I'm also married to a physician who does the same, and we have 3 little kids, ages 9, 6, and 3. So we're pretty busy with all of that going on. And my husband and I both strive to keep ourselves as healthy and in shape as possible. But I'm certainly not a fitness coach. I went to medical school. I did a residency in psychiatry, and that's my area of practice. During the pandemic, I had my 3rd child and just became much more interested in ways in which I could empower myself and my family to stay fit and healthy without relying on external interventions from the medical system. While those are great, they're life-saving, we do a wonderful job with medical interventions, I wanted to do as much as possible to prevent needing those interventions, especially seeing what transpired with the pandemic when things are kind of outside of our control. So I went down this path of discovering plant-based nutrition. So that became a big area of focus for me in my personal life and in my professional life. And I also learned about many other facets of preventative medicine because my friend discovered that I was on this plant-based journey and introduced me to lifestyle medicine. And she said, hey, why don't we pursue a lifestyle medicine board certification as well? She's actually a neurologist. I'm a psychiatrist. And we kind of did that together. We supported each other and kind of learned about the other pillars of lifestyle medicine. One of them, of course, is moving your body, physical exercise. And I also know from reading the literature and going through that process that there's a lot of evidence around, especially strength training for both mental health and physical fitness. So that's something I always wanted to do, but fitting it in there, it's one of those things that never seemed to really stick into my schedule. Like, it's one thing to go for a walk or go for a run, but doing a dedicated strength training routine requires like another level of expertise. And I never got myself to the gym to get a personal trainer to really learn how to do that. My husband is a little bit better at that. He has more of a sports background and has books, and he kind of pieces it together for himself, but I was feeling like I was lacking. Plus, in the past, I've done yoga. I've done hot yoga. There's a place here called the Hot Yoga Spot that I did. I was like a very devoted practitioner back in residency before I had kids. But I couldn't get myself out of the house for these, longer yoga sessions as much as I'd love to. So that was just not in the cards. I heard Maxime on a podcast and like just really connected with your story. Just many aspects of your story. You were vulnerable. There was one kind of interesting thing that you shared about yourself, that you were biting your cuticles and you like solved that problem. You shared your strategy for that. So it's this weird, random, totally unrelated thing. But I was like, I have also struggled with that. And I just like that you were vulnerable and you shared that, because it's one of those things that most people aren't gonna like necessarily talk about. But I was like, if he can stop doing that, I have faith in him to like get me in shape. So yeah, I just explored the program. I had the discovery call with Ivy and kind of went from there. And I'm super happy that I did.
Yeah, beautiful. I didn't happy that that part. I didn't know that that part connected with you when I shared
Yeah,
about biting my nails. Yeah, that's that's funny.
right.
I am a pretty open book. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. So you basically did you go plant based during kind of the pandemic? That was kind of like your introduction to kind of that world that kind of sealed you wanting to live that lifestyle.
Yeah. It's something that I've honestly always had in the back of my mind, or in the forefront of my mind for a long time, like for years. I could probably time it back to around when Rich Roll's book came out, Finding Ultra, and
Yeah.
also Forks Over Knives. And I come from a dairy farm family. And I actually watched Forks Over Knives with my parents, and they even found it compelling. Um,
Yeah.
but they're dairy farmers, you know, so they're not gonna
It's
they're not
their
gonna change that.
livelihood, so it's
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 their
harder to
livelihood.
convince them.
Right, right, yeah. But I've always had that. It's like with going vegetarian, vegan, plant-based, it seems like there are always seeds planted and something kind of eventually connects. And I think for me, it was both the pandemic and also the fact that I had these three daughters to take care of and to raise and to educate about how to, what tools they might be able to use, whether they choose to use them or not, to make themselves as healthy as possible. And I have a family history of breast cancer, so I always kind of grew up just thinking that might be part of my life. It's something
Yeah.
genetic. But then I learned from just educating myself that that's not necessarily true. And in fact, I went and got genetic testing in recent years and found that I don't really have a genetic vulnerability to that. So maybe it's something else that my whole family does that makes everyone vulnerable. And so plant-based nutrition is one of those variables that might help, to help someone to prevent getting cancer. And of course,
Yeah.
you can be as healthy as possible and do all the right things and still have things happen. And that's not to say that anyone in my family or anyone else's family is to blame for any sort of bad medical thing, including cancer that happens to them. But I just am the type of person who likes to figure things out and do what I can to make things as good as possible. So I think a plant-based diet is good for me. It's good for the planet. It's good for the animals. So it really makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, you made me think of this quote. I can't remember who said it, but someone said it on a podcast, and it was, "Disease doesn't run in the family, diets do."
Hmm.
And a lot of the times when you do have family members that do get sick, a lot of time it will be like lifestyle related, but then a lot of other family members will take it as a sentence, as of like, well, that's just kind of what happens in our family, right? We have heart issues, we get cancer, we get diabetes, we kind of have to deal with all of these things. So I think it's beautiful that you kind of took that on for yourself of like, no, it doesn't have to end up that way. I actually have a lot of power in changing the outcome for the future for yourself and ultimately for your kids too. Um, so what made you want to kind of do a program like ours? And first of all, have you ever done something online before? Or was this your first time?
Yeah, I've never done anything that involved a community online. Again, the only sort of community type of exercise that I've done has been through a yoga studio. And that's a little different because that's class by class, so it's not really a
Yeah.
program. I did do a couple of fitness apps, um, and those were okay for certain things. And I even noticed some similar exercises, but it's nowhere near the same thing as joining a community. And that was one of the important aspects for me that I thought was unique about the Fit Vegan program, and that really I connected with, because one of the more challenging aspects for me personally about going plant-based is not really having a huge community of people who share in that
Yeah.
lifestyle. So it's kind of isolating in a way. And it's still exciting to talk to people about it and try to get people excited about eating more plant-based foods. But not everyone really cares or wants to talk about it
Not
or
everyone's
wants
as
to learn
excited
about
as
it.
us.
Right, exactly. So I was really excited about the community aspect, honestly. And
Yeah.
it was nice to connect with the community.
Yeah. So what goals did you originally have set for yourself before you came in?
Yeah, one specific goal was just to kind of get closer to doing a push-up. I've always had very low upper body strength. I think I'm a strong person. I'm physically fit, like overall, but I really wanted to increase my muscle mass. I think a sign of that for me is doing a push-up, since it's something I've never quite been able to do. So definitely increasing muscle mass was like my main objective, really. I'm going to be 43 years old this year, so I'm above 40, which means my muscle mass is probably going to start to decline if it hasn't already, unless I kind of do something about it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my primary goal, aside from just garnering all the other benefits that come along with a dedicated strength training program.
Yeah, and how was it for you to get started? Because you kind of transitioned to kind of eating this way. You've done your research before. You had been physically active, but how was the beginning of the process of like, hey, here's your tailored plan for your training, nutrition. Here's a community. Like how was that initial experience for you?
You know what? It was really refreshing. It felt like the burden was a little bit taken off my shoulders to an extent, because I've been doing so much on my own to learn as much as possible, do as much as possible, kind of do it on my own, which is kind of the type of person that I am, for better or for worse. And I'm not the type of person who readily asks for help. I feel more comfortable helping other people. So it felt like a huge relief. I had a dedicated nutritionist, a whole food plant-based nutritionist, Sarah, telling me these are the foods, in a menu form with pictures that you can eat to hit these goals, including macros, which is like kind of a hot topic in the plant-based community. People in the plant-based community sometimes feel like they're being singled out for talking about protein and balancing macros. However, it's important for everyone to take a close look at their diets. I don't care if you're eating meat or not. It's important to pay attention to what you're eating and have a well-planned diet. So it was nice
Yeah.
to see it mapped out like that and be able to follow it with recipes, and to have a workout regimen that I knew if I followed it, um, then I would be working towards my goals, and that I had support along the way. So if something wasn't working, or I didn't know how to do an exercise, or I wasn't sure which weight to use, it's it's very easy access to ask questions and modify things accordingly, um, as any questions or concerns came up. So for me, it was exciting. I felt a relief. It actually was even less of a time commitment than I was anticipating. I was a little nervous about whether or not I'd be able to really stick with the program because of the time commitment. But I was honest with Sarah about what I could feasibly accomplish as far as time per week, number of days per week, and access to equipment, etc. And I asked her if I could do everything in my home, and she said absolutely yes. because the travel for me to get to a gym, like I can go to the YMCA or go to a local gym, and that's not a problem, except that you have to get there and come back, which just tacks on time that I don't have the luxury of extra time. So it taught me how to work out in my home and achieve results. So I still have the option to go out to yoga studio or whatever,
Yeah.
but I don't have to, which was an incredible like learning experience.
Yeah, I feel that's a part of making it sustainable, right? Is everyone's in a different position. We have people, like you that have 3 kids, that have a full-time career. There's people that are grandparents that are retired. There's people that are in their 20s and they're just, working and don't have kids yet. So everyone has a different time obligation. And I love what you said about nutrition. A lot of people don't want to kind of bring awareness to kind of the distribution and the proportion of the macros in their food. And I think it's the same as like never ever looking at your finances.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know if you're overspending? How do you know if you're, if you're in the hole? How do you know if you're going into debt? Like those things are important to kind of be able to track and measure to know where you stand. You mentioned something that it's really hard to ask for help. And I feel like that's a really common theme amongst the people that we work with. So what was it for you that made it so that you were okay asking for help at that point?
Yeah, I think I just came to the realization that I can't necessarily, or I'm not that I can't. I don't. I'm trying to avoid using words like can't, shouldn't, etc. Rather, I don't want to do everything on my own, and also it's an unnecessary burden to try to start from scratch when there are people out there who are experts in something that I'm not an expert in, who can tell me exactly how to do it. And since joining, I think on some of the calls, maybe you mentioned that actually you don't have to overthink it. In fact, you're providing a map, and you're only asking the members to follow that map. And I think that is simply put, and it's true and honest. And I think that I was just ready to join a program where I felt like our goals were aligned. So it's not just fit vegan, it's whole food plant-based. And I don't know if I'm kind of conveying this clearly, but it was just kind of the right place and the right time. I heard you speak on a podcast, and then I looked into the program, and then I met with your team, and everything just kind of lined up with my goals, and I just took a chance, and I'm happy that I did.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, a lot of people that are usually a lot of people we work with are just like you. They're afraid to ask for help, but they are the helper to everyone else. So they never have someone to kind of go to kind of have that support. And so I'm happy that we were able to provide that for you. But ultimately, you did it all on your own because asking for help and wanting to do it by yourself, I feel like they're two different things. Is asking for help, it's like, hey, here's the blueprint, here's the map to do it. But the actions, that's all you, right? Because I couldn't do the squats for you. I couldn't do the push-ups
Right.
for you. I couldn't eat the food for you. Like you did all of that by yourself, which is why you got incredible results. So you did it on your own. You just
Right.
had a map, to kind of get you
Yeah.
there faster ultimately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's an important point to make, because you can join any program in the world, and if you don't do the actions yourself, then it's not going to yield results, and that's kind of a choice, right? But I
Yeah.
think there's a level of accountability though with the Fit Vegan program that you don't get from an app like I've done before, or from just doing things piecemeal here and there. There are check-ins, there's accountability, there are group calls. So, Sarah creates a video, or whichever coach you're working with creates a video every week to check in and provide feedback. So there are checkpoints all along the way. We're asked to take pictures and record measurements. I'll be honest, one of my goals was not a weight loss goal. So it wasn't something that I was tracking. And that did make my
Yeah, we don't
program
have
shorter.
any
So
weigh-ins. Yeah, we didn't have
yeah,
any
I know,
weigh-ins
you
for
know
you.
why. I'll tell you why. I don't have a scale in my house.
Yeah,
So
but we
it's
can
just
see
one of
from
those
your
things.
photos.
Yeah.
We can see from your photos that there's a significant difference in your body
Oh yeah,
composition, though.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. So that's another important point to me is that weight gain, weight loss is one variable, but body composition is the variable that is stressed within the program, and that was really what I was looking for. So I think most people probably who are seeking a fitness program are looking to lose weight, and that is an incredibly worthy goal. And reducing weight, if someone has overweight, is a really significant way to improve multiple markers of health.
Yeah.
But it is important to do that in a way in which the body composition shifts as well. So it's very nuanced. And I think that your program gets that right. I don't know if anyone listening, probably a lot of people listening, watched the You Are What You Eat docu-series.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really took away from that was some of the people didn't follow the instructions, which is totally expected. Human
Yeah.
beings are not very good at following instructions, which is why it's hard to do studies.
That's why there's
Um,
coaches. That's literally our job, is to help you
right.
stay on track. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. That's exactly why I sought you out. But the people who kind of took matters into their own hands and they were like, well, I can't eat that many carbs and that can't be right. So they just said, I'm just gonna do it my way and do more cardio and do less spend less time on strength training. They didn't have the most optimal results. So it's not
No.
surprising. And that was kind of a subtle point, I think. But that was one of the things I took away from it is that we tend to just think we know better because of all the things we hear about carbs and
Protein and
cardio and
cardio.
protein.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So I just kind of submitted to the program and you've had a lot of personal experience with body composition changes and helping so many people do that. And it really does play out that you have to work your muscles and eat protein to build more muscle. You have to do both of those things or else the protein kind of goes to waste. But if you're
Yeah.
working out and not eating enough, then you're going to waste muscles also. So your body's going to do what it needs to survive too.
Yeah. You brought up such a good point, and I feel that if I got, a bunch of coaches on a podcast, we could talk about this specific points for hours. It's always interesting to me when clients will come and hire us and then will tell us how to coach them. I was like, no, I want my nutrition to be. I was like, that's what you were doing before. It hasn't worked because you're here. You're here for something different, right? We have a lot of conversation like that with people, and I get it because emotionally we want to be in control of this aspect of our life, and it's kind of really hard to accept that maybe we don't have the answer right now, to kind of just give in to the process, which is why we say so often, right, trust the process, because we know what we're doing. But I get it. It is challenging to kind of submit to, hey, we're going to do things a new way, and it's going to be scary for you, but we promise you it's going to work out at the end. We know what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. And not only that, it's not just like, here's the process, do it, and we'll see you at the finish line. There's so much support along the way and adjustment and nuance and conversation about things that come up because I think people also feel a little bit more empowered with regard to their health and well-being, which is great because there's so much information out there and people ask more questions and want to understand what influencers are talking about. But it can get muddled because everyone kind of has an agenda. So the information that's out there can sound scary. People are trying to market or sound bites. Even if someone's not trying to market, someone there might be a sound bite kind of recorded and sent out there about intermittent fasting or any other hot topic type of thing like sleep. And within this program, we have community meetings twice a week, which is pretty frequently, and not to mention ongoing group chat every day, focusing on positives, focusing on wins. And we discuss these things with professionals who work with fitness, body recomposition every day. And so that makes you experts and gives you a better understanding about the subtleties and individual differences between people. So principles about, for example, intermittent fasting, there's no one size fits all program that everyone can follow. So it is important to seek individualized counseling and coaching about these things, or checking in with your own doctors. And the healthcare system can be frustrating. I know that. So there's also a tendency, I think, nowadays for people to want to get information on their own and figure it out on their own. I'm a perfect example, but I'm also a perfect example of someone who knows their limitations and seeks counsel from experts. And there's still a huge need for that. And it is important to seek counsel about questions regarding health and fitness from experts, rather than just try to piece together all this random information from the internet and social media.
Yeah, it's a struggle, and I think that's the hard part. Is people will see a YouTube video or a TikTok or read a synopsis of a book, and we're trying to put it all together in what they think is best. But ultimately, there's a lot of experience and knowledge that kind of goes into it. And I also just want to point out to kind of the people listening that like experts bring in other experts in their life in areas that they want to level up. They don't go try and study it for 10 years. Like I'm very confident that Jennifer could have studied to become a personal trainer in nutrition and kind of could have figured this out over time. Does she have time? She's a full-time doctor. She's married. She has 3 kids. Like it is an important aspect of her life, but she doesn't want to make a career out of it. And so it's way better to hire an expert to give you the shortcut versus kind of studying it for the next decade, right? So I just want people to kind of notice that. The people that aren't experts don't want to hire experts, but people that are experts do hire experts. It says a lot about people that are successful in the things that they do to people that aren't. Perfect. I love to dive into a little bit into like your story, because first let's talk about some of the results that you've achieved in the program so people can see from where you started kind of where you are now. But then I'd like to talk about like the speed bumps that have come up along the way, just for people to understand that this is not a perfect journey. Life does happen. So do you mind kind of sharing the results that you got and kind of like some of your biggest speed bumps and how you handled them?
Sure. Yeah, as far as results, I definitely accomplished the goals that I had set out to achieve. I can do some push-ups, which for me, I mean, that sounds so minor, but for me, it's so major. So like I said, I'm going to be 43 years old this year, and it's something that I have really tried to do on my own multiple times. I spent over a year trying on my own with my own patched together program, if you can call it that, to get myself to do this what I consider a basic thing. And I was not able to do it. But I talked to Sarah about it. And I even told her when I was doing my workouts, what I was doing, I was modifying. And she's like, that's great for range of motion. But if you really want to do a real push-up, you're going to have to do this other approach. And she told me how to work up to it in another way, like dropping down in a cobra and then pushing up. She just gave me other ways of working on it, because it is like a full body type of thing to do. So for me, that if that was the only thing I achieved, I would have been totally satisfied. But also I took away an incredible habit base. So I developed the habit of doing these workouts several times a week. And then Sarah taught me how to continue them. And I still have access to the app. I still have access to the alumni group, and the coaches, and I can message them anytime. Although I usually don't. I do check in once in a while to see if there's anything new going on. But now I do my workouts on paper. So I write down which workouts I'm going to do and I check mark them. And actually, until Sarah mentioned that that's how she does it, it never even occurred to me that that was like an option. I'm very type A and I'm like, want to do everything the right way, but it's great. I don't have to look at my phone and I can use my free weights and my bands that I have in my home. And so, I mean, I took away from it a lifetime of just a habit of making sure that I do this strength training a certain number of times a week. And I'm continuing to, do my strength training, build muscle mass. I'm continuing to focus on nutrition. You asked about road bumps. I did participate in the meal plan. So you have the option to participate in the meal plan or just to get the macros, which is also great, but then you would just kind of create your own food plan. But I got the meal plan and I stuck to it to an extent, but I am also feeding a family.
Yeah.
So I would say that the biggest bump in the road for me, like, is just preparing food. It's just constant food prep in my house and cooking and feeding people. It's much simpler to feed one person or even a couple of people, but feeding 5 people makes things challenging. So I address that by doing as much food prep as I can, and doing that in as organized a fashion as possible. So like peeling and chopping and prepping things and anticipating. So rather than just saying every day, what are we going to have for dinner? Whenever it gets to that point, and I have many of those days, the wheels fall off and we're just kind of scrounging for something. So I think nutrition is probably the harder thing. And I had that flipped in my mind. I thought that finding the time and space to work out was going to be the harder thing. But nutrition really is the most time consuming, most difficult thing to stay on
Yeah.
top of.
Yeah,
So,
especially when you're cooking for 5 people. So
right.
what kind of little, because we have a lot of parents listening to the podcast. So what kind of little strategies did you implement for yourself to kind of make it easier for you to stay on track with the nutrition, but ultimately still be able to feed the family?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just preface that by saying that we very rarely like order out. We almost never go out to eat. And now that we've become much better plant-based chefs over the years, not overnight, but over the years, we actually don't even enjoy takeout as much. Um, and so we really do enjoy and appreciate cooking. But what I can say is the most effective way to stay on track is to have the foods that you want to eat handy. So make sure there's some like fresh vegetables, fresh fruit available, chopped up, whole grains, beans, having those things on hand and prepped and accessible goes a long way. And not having less helpful things on hand. Of course, with kids, I'll speak to the parents. It is a really delicate balancing act. And this is something I talk to with parent friends almost nonstop because we live in a food environment that is just filled with landmines.
Yeah.
And it's hard to avoid the like literally toxic foods and also not have your kids feeling restricted and giving them control over what they eat and what and trying to practice like intuitive eating. So helping them understand when they're full and what their body needs. It is a significant challenge, but I think leading by example is one important thing. And trying to educate kids and guide them without causing them to feel judged or restricted. Letting them know that if everyone's having, birthday cake at a birthday party, that's okay. It's not the worst thing I think to do for kids would for them to feel restricted and shamed for wanting to eat treats. Like we all want to eat treats. So I just try to remind myself that. But then just trying to kind of maintain balance and make sure overall the large percentage of what we're offering is is good for our bodies. It's so
Did you,
complicated though.
yeah. Did you notice a difference in kind of the behavior of your kids and your husband as you kind of went through this process, as you kind of changed the meals and nutrition, you started exercising in a different way? What kind of impact has it had on them?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've reflected on a little bit, but you're giving me the opportunity to reflect on it more. So yeah, my kids now know that I'm going to exercise, whether they like it or not, because trust me, kids just want your undivided attention. They don't care what you need, they don't care what you want. They have needs and wants, and that's what they are focused on. So my little one will say, "Stop exercising," and I'll just kind of, make a joke about it or try to get them involved and do this animal flow with me. Of course, whenever you suggest something to a kid, they're even more likely to not want to do it. But yeah, it's something they know that I do now. They're sort of aware that it's something that I place importance on, and I think that's all that matters,
Yeah.
really. My husband has really benefited from the program as well, just because the program has taught me how to do a better job of replacing that main course with something that has a decent amount of protein. The transition to a plant-based eating, in my experience, boils down to the main dish. So
Yeah.
everyone's gonna eat grains and fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. Maybe they weren't eating as many beans before, but that's that protein, so-called protein main dish is what really needs to be completely shifted and changed. So we've all benefited. And my husband says that all the time, that sometimes I'll be hard on myself. Like it feels like kind of a slog to be the outlier eating plant-based. And
Yeah.
and yeah, he'll always say, but look at how much you've done for our family by doing this. Like we're all better off for it. And it's so true. Even at family functions, my like extended family is not plant-based, but I'll try to bring plant-based dishes, and everybody enjoys it. And I think just showing people by example that it's not a sacrifice, it's just different. So
Yeah, and I applaud you for that. It is the hardest thing, but it is also the best tool to influence people, which is leading by example. And as much as your kids, kind of mess around, it's like, mommy, you're working out, but at the end of the day, they're seeing you do it. And it's gonna, it's gonna be ingrained in them of like, oh, we always saw mommy work out. So it obviously has to be something important to that, right? We ate plant-based when we were at home. So it's gonna have an influence on them positively. And for the members of the family, it's the same thing. Hey, they see you in great shape. They see you thriving. They see you feeling awesome. Your whole family being healthy compared to the majority of the families that are out there. There's something to it. And I feel like people are more receptive to the idea of changing their way of eating when they see, I just like to call it greatness, right? When they see greatness, they see someone thriving and shining. They're like, hey, I want what they're having. What are you doing? I was like, I eat, kale and quinoa and beans. And they're like, oh, I want to shine, but not like that. Right. But at least it starts the conversation.
yes, absolutely. You're 100% right. It's funny, something I almost forgot about, but a few months back I was home. So we don't live super close to family because of our profession. We live near a large medical center. So we
Mhm.
travel a couple hours to see family, and we were down visiting my, farm family, and they were doing my brother was doing this silly challenge with my dad and my nephew who's in his 20s, and it's super strong. Like he's a swimmer, and they were like holding out a glass mug or a stein and like counting how long they could hold it out in front of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to try that. And I got pretty close. And I like the weakling, right? Oh, the lazy weakling, like who doesn't want to work on the farm and doesn't want to do
Yeah.
any quote unquote work. And they were like, oh, they kind of were trying to make fun of me and say, oh, it must be your vegan diet. But they couldn't even really make fun of me because I was really strong in that
Yeah.
challenge. So these are all like big, strong, tough farm guys. So
Yeah.
I found that pretty validating, as kind of superficial as that was.
Yeah. You
But
show them
thanks.
how it's you
I
show how
thank you
fit
for that.
vegans do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was during my fit vegan process. So
Yeah.
you helped me kind of shine and show what vegans can do.
Yeah, especially to family members. I get it.
Yeah.
It's like they grew up with you, right? So they have this like
Right.
certain expectation of how you're going to show up, and you're like, no, I can hold this stuff for a really long time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a good fun too. One of the things that has come up for me along the way is just like this tribal mentality where I felt like, oh, I'm not going to be a part of the group because I'm trying to do something different and it might feel confrontational. If you're doing something, people might take that as the message to be, well, then you think I'm doing something wrong, which isn't true at all.
Mm,
But it feels like it, it did feel for me a little bit difficult emotionally. Like I feel totally committed and convinced that this, for me, helps me feel aligned with my values. And not only that, helps me thrive and be as healthy as possible. But it can be confronting if people think that you're making a change or you think that they should make a change. And it's a totally personal choice. And food is this just emotionally loaded thing because it's just a part of everything that we do, and it's a great connector, and eating and cooking and preparing food for people connects us. So to do that a little bit differently for me was a little bit of an just social emotional growth curve over the
yeah,
years. And that didn't start
of course.
with the Fit Vegan program, but just over the years. It's something that I would say anyone who's trying to make this change or has a desire to make this change and hasn't started yet, to give yourself time and space just to learn how to do something different. And then it's not an all or none type of thing. It's not a sacrifice. You don't have to leave a life behind and start a new life. It can be a gradual process. Just start with one plant-based lunch a week, and you'll be doing a huge difference for yourself and everything else in the meantime.
Yeah, it's so funny because people treat it as if they have to like leave their family, move to another country, and be vegan, right? Like it's like no, you can start with breakfast. you can start you,
Absolutely.
you can start with lunch. Um, I'd love to ask you, post program because like how many months have you been out of the program now? It's been a few months.
It's been a couple of months. I finished in February, so time
Yeah,
flies.
yeah.
Yeah, it has been a couple of few months. Yeah.
Yeah, normally I record with people like right before they finish, but my
Mhm.
schedule's been so busy with recording,
Yeah.
so I'm happy we got it in now. So,
Yeah.
how have you been handling, post program, doing the workouts on your own, nutrition? Have obviously I have already an idea, but like, have you been keeping up the lifestyle? How has it shifted the trajectory of your life?
Mhm. Yes, yes, I have been keeping up with it. There's less accountability, of course, when you're out on your own. So I'm probably more flexible with it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
But I'm not like tapping into my smartwatch and recording every workout because I'm doing it on paper. So I have to be a lot more accountable. And it really causes me to ask myself why I'm doing it. Am I doing it because I want to get the good grades in the program and hit all the milestones, or am I doing it because I want to create a lifetime of health and strength and well-being? So it really does force you to reflect on your goals of why you started the program. And I just wanted to point out that actually one of the big things that attracted me to the program was the fact that it has a defined endpoint. So you're not trying to keep anyone on the hook forever. In fact, that wouldn't really work at all within your model, within your business model. So you want to teach people how to do this, and then let them set out on their own. And I'm sure that there are people who need to come back and do a refresher, and they're welcome back too. I think I've seen people pop in and out. They had an injury or something like that, and they had to
Yeah.
step away and they
Dr.
came back.
Jade had a baby, came back
Oh,
after. Yeah, like
there you
yeah.
go. But yeah, I like that the program is structured to create that ultimate independence. And so it's been going well. I'm not following the meal plan by the book because again, that just doesn't really fit into
It's
the
a
way
good
that I
thing.
live. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And I don't think it's intended to be
Yeah.
used that way. So it's really helped me just learn how to naturally incorporate more high protein foods into my diet, to use protein supplementation here and there, just to make sure I'm hitting my marks. So I like prioritize that a lot more. But it's been going really well. I think I said in the group call that when Sarah told me that the program was ending, I wasn't keeping great track of it. So I was taken by surprise and I was super excited. I was like, yeah, I really have accomplished what I wanted to accomplish within the group setting, and I'm ready to take it. I'm ready to start doing it on my own. I don't think I need the support of the group calls every week anymore, and it's something I can kind of take off my schedule and do it in a
Yeah.
little bit more flexible manner. So,
Yeah, and that's the whole point, like you said, right? Like the point is not to keep you in a program forever. It's like, can we educate you with the resistance training, with the nutrition, the fat loss, the reverse dieting, and then eventually you have to learn to walk on your own, right? It's a little bit, it's kind of not to call like rehab. If you injure your foot, you have to learn to like walk again. Eventually you can sprint. Eventually you're strong enough to kind of go off on your own. Like that's the whole point because yeah, like I'm not gonna follow a meal plan for the rest of your life, right? But
no.
you're gonna eat primarily whole food plant based. You're gonna eat healthy food. You're gonna prioritize protein, especially as you get older. You continue to do resistance training for the bone strengthening benefits and the retention and building of lean muscle as you age. So like that's the whole point. And there's always that moment after you're done where it's like, oh, I'm on my own. No one's checking in with me. Okay, I'm doing this for me now. Okay, like I check in with me. How is it going? And um, it scares people, but I'm happy that you dealt with it well because ultimately people always end up being fine as they just
Mhm.
continue to show up. It just kind of it just works out ultimately. As
Right.
long as you keep showing up, it just works out.
Yeah, yeah, I've been showing up and increasing my weights. For Mother's Day, my husband gave me some new free weights because I needed heavier ones. I've
Nice.
no, yeah, and like my little daughter is getting bigger and bigger, and I can lift her up higher and higher. And for me, that's the best thing in the world. Um,
Nice. You should do
yeah,
you should look Milo of Croton. You should look up that
I'll check it
story.
out.
Yeah, it's a story about progressive overload. How he, when he's a kid, when he's younger, he carries a bull on his back and walks up a hill. And as he gets older and the bull gets bigger, he continues to put it on the back. And it's a
Mhm,
concept of progressive overload. It's always going a little bit harder. So if you
mhm.
continue living your child, lifting your child that way, eventually you might be able to lift them even at 18,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, your
But
parents out there will know that you grow. It's like we joke about mommy muscles, but
yeah,
like someone who doesn't have a baby who goes to pick up like a 9-month-old baby, you're like, oh my gosh,
it's
this is
heavy.
really
Yeah,
heavy. But the mom is just like holding the baby, doing all the chores, or the dad, as
yeah,
it were, because that is exactly what happens over time. But there's a point where that levels off because they don't need to be carried as much. So
yeah,
my almost 4-year-old, I'm not carrying her around as much, so that drops off, but I'm keeping up my strength. And
yeah.
yeah,
It's so funny because I have an aunt, I have a 4 kid, and man, one of her arms is like a bodybuilder arm. It's
yeah,
so jacked and ripped, and there's veins in it because she always carries a child in the groceries with that one hand. And
right.
at one point, I was looking at her, I was like, "Oh my god, like that arm is so much bigger." She's like, "Yeah, because I always carry the kid from that side." So yeah, mommy
Right.
muscle is a real thing. You just got to
Yeah,
even it out
so
a little bit so both arms are at least equal.
yeah, it's usually like the non-dominant arm because then you have to do everything else with the other arm. But you're right, it's
Yeah,
so funny and it's so true. It's definitely an imbalance,
yeah.
muscle distribution.
So I'd love to ask you as we kind of come at an end with the podcast,
Mhm.
'cause I know you have to go pick up your kids as well. I want to be respectful of your time. Um, what are some lessons? Have been some valuable lessons that you've learned throughout this journey? And what are a piece of advice that you can pass off to people that are just beginning this process?
Yeah, no, thank you. One of the things is it's really caused me to connect with one of the principles of lifestyle medicine, and it's one of those things I didn't even know existed. I'm a doctor who works with medical students and residents, but it's an entire board uh, certification program of like preventive medicine, and there's different pillars of health. But one of the things that you're tested on, even in the board exam, is the fact that scientific studies show that doctors who practice what they preach are more effective at getting their patients to follow their advice, which is absolutely huge. So
Yeah.
the program has taught me, like, I already knew about the importance of strength training and eating a balanced diet, but I wasn't the most organized about it. And now I feel much more confident advising other people about how to do the same because I've done it myself. So it's no wonder that the science plays that out. But that is something really invaluable that the program has taught me. And if you're just starting out, you might feel like you have a long way to go, or that the program as you see it isn't going to get you to those goals like very quickly. You might want to lose weight more quickly or grow muscles more quickly. But if you want lasting results, this has to be done in a measured way where you're not
Yeah.
starving your body, where you're progressively loading your muscles. So it's going to probably take a little bit of time, like anything else, especially if you're just now switching to a plant-based lifestyle. Give yourself some time and space to catch on and like feel confident that the progress is going to come. One of your biggest messages is consistency is much more important than intensity.
Yeah. Compounds.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and really, I have seen that play out for myself over time. And I'll say, like I said in the group call, that I'm proud of everyone who is taking any steps to improve their health. I think you're not in the majority of people. I think a lot of people rely on our medical system,
Yeah.
which is again incredible and extremely effective at saving lives when emergencies come up. But anything you're doing to prevent yourself from getting into a situation where you need that type of intervention is difficult and rewarding. And I congratulate you for taking those steps in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you cut your foot, don't go see me, go see the doctor for sure.
Right.
Right? But if you're like prevention, I don't have any good like experience or history with prevention at the hospital.
Mhm.
And I think that's the reason why
Right.
we've had like so many doctors come our way to kind of learn these skills, kind of like what you've done.
Mhm.
Actually, one last question for you. Have you noticed a difference in how you kind of see and treat your patients with kind of this newfound knowledge and own personal experience with kind of your fitness and nutrition journey?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great question. I do. I am able to speak more confidently to my patients about how certain lifestyle interventions, like diet and exercise, might affect their long-term outcomes. My area of practice currently is inpatient psychiatry, so that's not usually the area of focus. However, even people who are in the hospital because of an emergency situation have regular problems. They have constipation. They have type 2 diabetes because of diet and lifestyle or medication side effects. So it feels really good to be able to offer them um, information, education, in addition to the necessary medical interventions. And people really want to learn what they can do to make things better, that they're not totally at the mercy of only what we have to offer in medicine, that there are steps that they can take. So it really has helped me connect with my patients in that way, and my colleagues and my family and my friends. So yes, it absolutely has affected my professional approach as well.
Yeah, you've become a shining light in your community. Ultimately, you're now leading by example, and people are watching, whether we know it or not. People are watching. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Awesome. Well, Jennifer, I want to say massive thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate you squeezing me in so that we're able to record this podcast. Um, Everyone listening, if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like it, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, comment down below. If you have any questions, we'll be sure to answer those. And Jennifer, any last words of wisdom you'd like to pass off to the audience to wrap it up?
Um, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also for taking the time to have the conversation with me. I think it's nice to be able to summarize the experience. And my advice to you is that nobody can know everything. I mean, nobody knows everything. And if you have a question about something, there is absolutely no shame. In fact, the opposite, in asking an expert for help and guidance. That is a sign of intelligence and empowerment. And it's great to question information that you hear, but it is also important to seek counsel from experts. So I'm definitely a living example of that. I'm super proud of myself for seeking help from Fit Vegan, and it has paid off in spades in my life. And I encourage you to do the same. If you're struggling with an aspect, look for someone who's an expert in that area. And don't hesitate to ask questions. People who are experts in their area love to talk about it and love to help other people. So that's kind of my advice.
Beautiful. Yeah, we do light up when we talk about our field of expertise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for jumping on. Everyone, thank you for listening. Be sure to stay tuned for this upcoming Thursday's episode because we do post twice a week, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.